move to the second session this afternoon. Appreciate you all. I do have the pleasure this afternoon of introducing Rebecca Fee from the University of Indianapolis and the Center for Aging and Community. Rebecca's going to talk to you about Dementia Friends. It's a great program, and I'm excited for you to be able to see it. Just a quick house note before we get started. Once this is over at 3, from 3 to 3:30, we'll have the exhibits downstairs. The cafe, I do believe, will still have some drinks left. And at 3:30, we will have some closing statements back in the where we started this morning. If you would like to attend at 3:30, we hope to see you all there. All right. There is also a sign-in sheet coming around if you would like a certificate. Just circle the appropriate box in the last column, and we'll get a certificate mailed to you for your attendance today. And if there's anything else I can do, please let me know. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Well, hi, as she said, my name's, well, it says Rebecca on there, but I go by Becky, so Becky Fee, and I'm with the University of Indianapolis. I'm very excited to be here and be able to do this Dementia Friends, presentation today. I actually went through the Train the Trainer session just before COVID struck us, and so every presentation I've done up until today has been on Zoom. So this is the first live audience that I've been face to face with. I'm excited about that because this presentation is designed to be interactive. We ask for your participation, so I hope you'll just jump in and speak up whenever. I do have a workbook for everyone, so if you would just take a workbook and pass them around. You don't really have to have it. Everything that's in the workbook is on the presentation screen, but the thing about it is there's some resource pages in the back of it, and that's why we want you to have it so that you have those resources handy after the session should you decide that there's somebody you need to contact for something. Like I said, I'm with the University of Indianapolis. My degree is in gerontology, but I do this as a volunteer for SACOA just to try and help educate people about dementia, to try and help reduce the stigma associated with the word dementia when you hear it, and just to try and make everybody more knowledgeable. Our goal is to have, I see them wearing dementia-friendly Indiana shirts, and so our goal is to just make Indiana a more friendly place for those people who are living and dealing with dementia and for their caregivers. So this is not a scientific presentation. It's I've enjoyed everything I've seen, but this is not that. This is more just help you learn a little bit about what goes on with dementia patients and their people living with dementia and their caregivers. I myself became interested in it because my father had Alzheimer's. He passed away about 7 years ago. His sister is currently living with Alzheimer's and is in some of the final stages of it now. So it's near and dear to my heart, and so that's why we're here. You have your workbook. Okay. So for us, we're asking the question, what is dementia? And I'm going to go kind of quickly for some of this because I feel like that most of you really know, since you're at this session today, know something about dementia already. And this is actually a solid 60-minute presentation, and we're going to try and get it in 45 or less. So I don't want to leave out any of the stuff that I feel like is important. But when you think of dementia, what kind of terms come to mind to you? What would be a term that would come to mind? Anybody? Remember I said this is interactive, y'all get to talk.
Memory loss.
Memory loss, okay. Anything else?
Out of touch with the world around us.
I couldn't hear you.
Out of touch with the world around us.
Out of touch with the world around you. A lot of times I hear the term confusion, kind of to describe that, I think. But the point of this is that most of the terms that I think that you hear when someone mentions dementia or Alzheimer's and decides to talk about it, generally speaking, they talk in kind of negative terms. Those words that we said have a more negative connotation. And so our goal today is, by the end of the session, that you think of it in a more positive light, and that we go out of here with some positive terms and some positive thoughts about dementia and living with dementia. So I know if you were in the big session in the auditorium this morning, you've seen, oops, I gotta be careful about touching this. You've seen this information that dementia is a broad umbrella term, and that Alzheimer's is just one type of dementia. However, it does make up a large percentage. That's the big circle there for Alzheimer's, the little circle for all the other types of dementia, such as frontal temporal, vascular, dementia with Lewy bodies, all those different kinds of dementia. But it's still, when we say the term dementia, we're talking about several different diseases that people can have. Sometimes in my presentation I say Alzheimer's just because it is the most common form, it's the one we're used to hearing about, and so that's generally what we say. And almost all of them are associated, have some kind of impact on your memory, your thinking, your language, your reasoning skills, your perception and behavior. So they all kind of have that in common, although they each have their own uniqueness to them. As I said, a goal for Dementia Friends Indiana is to have a more friendly community. I know Bloomington has made big strides in, if any of you are from Bloomington and participated in that community, they've made big strides in educating businesses and people who deal with the general public. Just 2 weeks ago, I made a presentation to the first year IU medical students, because one of our goals is to make sure that as people go into the medical profession, that they have some understanding about dementia and how to talk to and deal with caregivers, people living with dementia, and those friends and family around them. Because what we found is that a lot of medical professionals, especially doctors and nurses, just don't get that as part of their normal curriculum. So we made a big push to that. We got into IU this semester. We hope to be able to do that in a lot of other medical schools and classes around the state. But the goal is, that's not very clear, that's hard to see, but you see all those bubbles around that city there? The idea is to go into businesses, schools, universities, other organizations, and to teach them this particular kind of information that we're going to talk about today, so that they can have a business that can be more friendly and more welcoming and get along better with those customers who come in who may be dealing with dementia and their caregivers. Like an example is, at the University of Indianapolis, there's a small business next door called Books and Brews, and I don't know if any of you ever heard of the Books and Brews, but they have gone through the training, and they allow us, we've held 6 what we call memory cafes there now, where they kind of close down and just allow us, we have the bands from the university come over and do a concert, and in good weather we do it outside in the parking lot, and we invite all of the people living with dementia and their caregivers who want to come to just enjoy an afternoon of music. We have the jazz band does one, and the pep band does one, and they take turns doing those. So Books and Brews has made an effort to be, and there's a lot of those kinds of businesses around the state. Some of them will shut down for an afternoon, and like a restaurant, and just allow those families to come in and be served with easier menus, and just taking things slower and using the time that needs to be used in order to better serve a person living with dementia and their caregivers and their families, and just give them, we're just trying to give them an opportunity to be social and enjoy themselves without any negative connotations or anybody scrutinizing or anything like that. So that's one of the goals, to make the entire community dementia friendly. When we talk about dementia, one of the things that we want to educate people to are that there are normal things that happen to us as a sign of aging, and then there are other things that might prompt us to say, oh, either I need to go talk to a physician or a medical practitioner about this issue, or I have a loved one who I think needs to. So, the first one is memory loss. All of us occasionally forget a name. That's one of my bad ones. I've been doing that forever. But if our memory gets to where we just can't remember anything hardly, and it disrupts our daily life, then that's a clue that we might need to go see a medical professional and get some assistance and see what's going on. Like she said downstairs today, it's not hopeless anymore. There are things you can do to improve, to not get worse faster, turn things around somewhat. I'm sorry, I got a tickle. So it's not hopeless. So when you see a symptom, hopefully you won't be afraid to go get checked out and see what's going on with you. Because it could be something else. It could be a reaction to a medication that you're taking or some other illness. And so you really have got to figure those things out so you know what to do for yourself. An early sign or symptom would be challenges in planning or solving problems. We all make an occasional error. I don't know how many people have a checkbook anymore. That seems to be a thing of the past, but that's the example they gave here. But there are other things that we do that we may occasionally make an error. But if we're making those all the time and we're not really sure why, that might be a reason to go get checked out. Difficulty completing a familiar task at home, or this is one that I know we noticed with my dad. Things that he used to do, like he mowed 10 acres. And so he used to be able to take care of the lawnmowers and all the maintenance and upkeep and all that. And all of a sudden, he just didn't seem to be able to carry that out anymore like he used to. And I'm sure, I don't know if any of you have any examples of things that you may have noticed if you've been trying to help someone, but it's typical to need occasional help. You know what, when the power goes off, how many of us have trouble remembering how to reset the TV or the remote? Almost everybody. I don't believe it if you say, oh, I never have any trouble with stuff like that. The microwave starts flashing at you, and it might flash for a week before you can figure out how you fixed it, or one of the grandkids comes in and you say, can you please fix the time on my microwave? So those things are different. You know what I'm talking about when I say things get really difficult. You have confusion with time or place. You don't know exactly what day or time it is, and you can't figure it out. Like, sometimes if I've had a day off in the middle of the week, like yesterday we had Veterans Day off, then I'm confused the rest of the weekend because I thought it was Friday instead of Thursday, and I have to straighten myself up. That's not unnormal, but if that happens to you a lot and there's nothing extraordinary going on, then that might be a reason to get checked out. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. That's another reason that a lot of times they ask you not to drive anymore, because Alzheimer's and other forms of dementias may affect your visual perception, your peripheral vision, how you see things, your spatial recognition. So if you're having those kinds of problems, like I said, it might not be dementia, but it could be, so that would be a reason to get checked. Come on. New problems with words or speaking or writing may be another reason to, any of you are having trouble finding a word when you need it sometimes? My mom occasionally, my mother's still living, she's 89, and she worries about having dementia because Dad had dementia, and we went through that. And so when she can't find a word sometimes, or something's going on, she'll say, oh, Becky, do I need to get checked? Do you think something's going on with me? So she's a little overcautious, but you know what I'm talking about when you say, what's normal, and you'll know when it's not normal. Misplacing things, not being able to find them, that's a big thing. Many times people living with dementia will misplace things, or they might put the alarm clock in the refrigerator, you never know, and then they might accuse you of stealing it. because they can't find it. They don't know what happened to it. Those kinds of things are not normal. You know, occasionally laying something down, not being able to find it, that's okay. You know, a few weeks ago, I got outside my car and got ready to go home and went to grab my phone to put my audiobook on, and no phone. And so then I was like, oh, what did I do with my phone? And so, but I was able to go back in the building and retrace all my steps and go to all the places that I had been in the last hour and find it. Someone living with dementia probably would not be able to do that. Withdrawal from work or social activities. One of the things that happens is many times people who are new to dementia or Alzheimer's realize that there is something going on and they want to hide it, and so they just kind of withdraw from activities around it. So if you noticed a loved one or a coworker or somebody like that who is withdrawing, making a lot more notes than they used to try and remind themselves what to do, that could be a sign that you need to talk with a medical professional. Changes in mood and personality, those are especially prominent with my dad. We didn't notice that with his Alzheimer's. With my aunt, so I think everybody is different. With my aunt, she was just the sweetest lady her entire life until her Alzheimer's progressed, and then she can get pretty violent sometimes, and she can, you know, be what you might call, you know, mean. She just can't help it. It's part of the disease, and we all recognize that. But those are, as you see subtle changes in mood and personality, if they become noticeable, it might be a reason to decide that it's time to go talk to a medical professional. So then we want to talk a little more about understanding Alzheimer's. Forgetting what I need to point back. So I don't know if you can see this or not. You may need to look in your workbook. This is on page, I'm not sure what page it's on. 5? Okay. No, some of you are following along. So let's just kind of work through this exercise together. Let's take the thing that's on the left, which says dementia is not, and which column, which item on the right would that fit in with? Dementia is not what?
B,
B, which is?
a normal part of aging. Not everyone who grows old will develop dementia.
Right. And this is the first of the 5 key messages that if you don't take anything else out of here today, I would like for you to take these 5 key messages with you when you leave. And the first is that it's not a normal part of aging. It is something that, it's a disease that can happen to people. So, some highlights from that whole big page of little bitty print is, did you know that 1 in 6 millennials are caring for someone with dementia? And they report that they have physical, mental, and financial challenges. You know, if you're a caregiver, you may know, maybe you had to quit your job and in order to take care of your loved one. And so that's, you know, can present many financial challenges. It can present, maybe you have to, if you have 24/7 care and you don't have someone to give you respite care, then you may become depressed and anxious and have all kinds of issues that you need help with as a consequence of being a caregiver. But there is help out there, and we want you to know about it and to find it. Also, spousal caregivers with dementia who are between the ages of 66 and 96 have a 63% increase rate of mortality than those who have non-caregiving responsibilities. That's because your responsibilities are great. You have tremendous stress, you have tremendous responsibility, and so it can affect your health as well as the health of the person that you're caring for. So we want you to get all the help that is available to you. So we have what we call the bookcase story. It's comparing what happens in the brain of a person with Alzheimer's, maybe other forms of dementia, but probably more so Alzheimer's than any other, and comparing it to a bookcase. This story is also in your thing, but dementia is like someone coming along and giving your very full bookcase a shake. You know how if any of you got bookcases at home that kind of are freestanding, and if you bump into them, the stuff on the top will fall off? Okay, that's kind of like, as I said, this is not a scientific presentation. So that's kind of like what happens with Alzheimer's. The memories are on the outside of the brain, kind of like the top of the bookshelf. And when Alzheimer's comes along and bumps them, those are the things that go first. So that's usually the things that we noticed first, is the memory loss. And so the books on the top start to fall out first, and they represent those memories that are related to facts and to complex tasks, those kinds of things. But you will notice as you care for a person with Alzheimer's that the feelings such as emotions, they leave last. They're the last things to go. And so they're like on the bottom of the bookshelf, because you know if you bump into that bookshelf, the stuff on the bottom shelf kind of stays in there. It doesn't go anywhere. So, okay. A dementia friend realizes there are still books left on someone's shelf, and that allows us to communicate and connect with someone who has been diagnosed with some type of dementia. Let's think about a 70-year-old lady who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, okay, or some form of dementia. And imagine that bookcase is beside her, and each bookcase represents just one, all the books on there, each book represents one of her skills or one of her memories. So on the top shelves are those memories or facts and her skill for thinking in complex ways. Okay? For people living with dementia, that's the part of the brain that gets damaged first. And that's what they lose first, why we notice those things. Skills such as math, using language, keeping one's behavior in check reside in that parts of the brain. And these books are all on the upper shelves of the bookcase. So when dementia rocks this woman's bookshelf, those begin to fall out. And she might not remember what she had for breakfast. She might not remember that somebody came to visit her that day. I know my dad never knew who'd been there, he always thought nobody was there, even though there were plenty of people around. They might forget that when they go to the drugstore, they're supposed to pay for something before they leave. So those are the kinds of things that go first, fall out. Emotions are much lower down on that bookshelf. They go last because they're on the inner part of the brain. So feelings of love, happiness, frustration, and sensing respect, those all reside deeper in and go last. So think about this woman and her daughter comes to visit. And there are two things that can happen on this visit. One, and I know this is hard, the daughter comes to visit and the mom doesn't remember who she is. And so the daughter spends her time trying to make her remember who she is, saying, Mom, you know my name's Becky, you know I'm your daughter. How can you not remember me? And so that's not a visit filled with love and ease, and it ends up being a frustrating, anxious kind of visit. So after that visit, when the daughter's gone home, the mother is still there, but she's anxious and frustrated. She may not know why. She doesn't understand what happened. However, the other scenario that can occur is the daughter comes to visit and the mother says, who are you? And she says, I'm just, I'm your daughter. How are you today? And if she says, no, you're not my daughter, she says, okay, but I love you. So, what do you want to talk about? And so you can, as the other person, you can direct that conversation and those feelings. So when that daughter goes home that day, the mother is left feeling calm and relaxed and loved because she can still feel that. She may not be able to express it. You may not understand it, but she can still feel that.
For the longest time, I was struggling with, Mom, where do you want to go for dinner tonight? We've got this, and this.
There you go. That's perfect example.
Stop. So then now I'm going, okay, do you want this place or this place? It's two choices. Or I just say, hey, do you want chicken or do you want breakfast? So cutting down the choices from 5 or 6 to 2, or maybe just 1 or 2.
Maybe just saying, here's what we're gonna do tonight.
Yeah, I tell you, the surprise, everything's a surprise, and I love that because we both love Christmas, and we're both kids. So I'm like, come on, Mom, I'm taking you out tonight. She's like, what? Where are we going? I'm like, it's your favorite place. It could be McDonald's that day.
Right,
You
still
know,
favorite place.
hey,
Exactly.
it's wonderful though. It's
Exactly.
wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. So, very good example, thank you. Try to speak slowly and clearly, using a gentle and relaxed tone, and patiently wait for the response. Remember, how long does it take for them to process what you just said? 20 seconds. So patiently wait. That's a really hard thing to do. Especially in the culture that we live in today, which everything is so immediate. This has nothing to do except that it's the culture we live in. I was telling my kids, my grandkids one day, I said, you all expect immediate responses to everything. It's text, call, well, they text now because that's quicker than making a phone call. And that's all they want to do. And I said, when I was growing up, we didn't even have cell phones. We had party lines still, because some of you may not even know what a party line is, but, we had one telephone hanging in the kitchen, and 7 neighbors all were on that line, and so when you pick the phone up to use it, somebody else might be on it. And so patience was waiting until Flossie Jackson got off the phone, for the last hour and a half, because it was hers at that moment. So, the culture that we're in today, though, is so different. Our patience is very worn out, very thin, because we're used to such immediate, quick responses to everything. So if you're dealing with a loved one or a family or friend who has dementia, try to take yourself out of that impatient road. And I think I said earlier about making a suggestion rather than asking the question. Avoid confusing and vague statements, turn negatives into positives. I like that one a lot. Instead of saying, don't go there because you see them headed to something that's going to be dangerous for them, just maybe take their hand and say, let's go over here. And just redirect them in that way, as opposed to trying to stop them and maybe causing an argument. Who knows? Come on. Avoid, give visual clues, point or touch. I think I mentioned that earlier. Avoid quizzing. The worst thing, my mom was always saying, Garrett, do you remember? And of course he had no clue. And, I'd say, Mom, don't ask him that. Just talk about what you want to talk about. Quit saying, do you remember? Because he doesn't. And anytime you want to, use written notes or pictures. But let me tell you how important this communicating and making sure that they're on a level where you can. My parents were big into local politics, and so up until my mom was probably 85, and she was still working at the polls as a clerk or a judge or whatever, and checking people in and doing all that. Well, Dad was in the later stages of Alzheimer's, and she had volunteered. She was going to the polls that day, and so she told him the night before that she was going. Of course, he had no idea the next day that she was going. So he was still in bed when she left at 5 o'clock in the morning, so she left him this detailed note, kind of like make a peanut butter sandwich. And on that note, she said, Garrett, I'm at the election polls. This is when I'll be home. The granddaughter was going to come at lunch and bring him lunch. She said, I don't know what she said about breakfast, but then she wrote, I made a pot of coffee. All you have to do is pour yourself a cup. And when my niece, it would be my niece, her granddaughter, when the granddaughter got there at like 12:30 or something, he was sitting at the kitchen table like this. And she could tell he'd had nothing to eat or drink or anything. And she said, well, Papa, have you not had anything to eat or drink? No. He really didn't know if he had or not, but he hadn't. And he didn't know where Mom was at. And he had read the note, but at the bottom of the note, he had written, where's the coffee pot? He didn't know, and it was 6 feet away. But he was reading that note, and he couldn't see the coffee pot, and he didn't know that it was in the same spot it had been for the last 45 years since they'd lived in that house. So think about that when you try to leave notes and you think you're doing this, it might not work. and my granddaughter she was so got, and my mom was so got that evening when they were there looking at that, and he was like, "Where's the coffee pot?" So it's things you just need to be aware of so that you can try to avoid those kind of situations. So here's our 5 key messages once again. Hey, we're doing pretty good, right on time. Dementia is not a normal part of aging, although not everybody who grows old is going to develop it. There are several of us in here moving along the age scale, and it appears we're doing okay. Some people will. Dementia is caused by disease. Dementia is not just about having memory problems. I've described several other things that happen to you. It's possible to have a good quality of life with dementia. But like I said, you need some support. You need loving care. The caregivers need loving care and respite help. There's more to the person than the dementia. They are still the same person they always were. They just have a disease that has caused them to have these issues. So, what we would like for you to do is turn your understanding that you've learned today into action by just taking one small step to help somebody else, tell somebody about going to a Dementia Friends session, spread information, share some of the tips you've learned today, share your resources, tell positive stories, anything that you can do. And we now consider all of you, you're probably going to fire me for my use of this, a dementia friend. I have over here a little flower button. Oh, you can see it? Is mine still there? A little flower button for everybody to signify that you can wear anytime you want to. And if somebody asks about it, tell them that you're wearing this because you're Dementia Friends and you've been to a Dementia Friends information session. And you'd be happy to share any information that you have in this workbook with them if they need it. All of these resources are in that workbook. The Alzheimer's Association has a 24-hour hotline. If you are dealing with that kind of situation, you're a caregiver, feel free to call them. They have counselors that can talk to you and help you through situations. SACOA is they're in Indianapolis. They are the actual, I'm not even sure what to call them. They're the director of Indiana Dementia Friends. Dementia Friends, I forgot to tell you this in the beginning. Dementia Friends, by the way, is an international organization. It was actually started in the United Kingdom, and it is now in 56 countries across the world. And Indiana is a part of that. There's lots of states that are a part of that. And the driving force in Indiana is SACOA, who is the Area Agency on Aging in Indianapolis. That information's in there. Feel free to contact them if you have any questions. They're always there to help. The lady who's the director of Dementia Friends Indiana is Mindy Winnie, and she is a fantastic gal and would be happy to talk to anybody about anything, anytime. And that's all of our social media stuff. That's my information. I'm also willing to help. If you know anybody who would like to have one of these sessions done, you can contact SACOA or me, and we'd be happy to come do one for some organization that you belong to, or a group of friends that you have that need to hear this information. Anytime, any place, we're always happy to help. On the very last page of your workbook is an evaluation form. I would truly appreciate it if you would complete that evaluation form and help us make these better sessions, improve them any way that we can. And if you can complete it and just leave it on your chair or downstairs at the front desk, wherever you want to leave it at, hand it to me, I don't care. But we would truly appreciate you doing that. And if you want a certificate, if you circled it on the thing, I will email you one. If you have an email address, if not, I'll mail it to you. I thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Becky.